Welcome to Mommy's on a Call, your sacred space to laugh, learn, and feel like a real grown-up human for a hot minute. I'm Stephanie Uchima Carney, a mom of 3 under 6, serial entrepreneur, business strategist, and donut connoisseur, just trying to get through the day one cold cup of coffee at a time. I believe that with more intention, a positive mindset, and self-care, it is possible to thrive in motherhood, business, and life. My mission is to uncover the daily rituals, life lessons, real-life tactics, and favorite tools to inspire and empower you, mommy, to get the most out of life every single unpredictable day. So grab your headphones, tell your kids you're on the potty, and tune in weekly for some laughs, knowledge bombs, and plenty of real talk with real moms, and maybe a dad or two. Welcome to the Mommy Pod. Welcome back to Mommy's on a Call. Today, I have the pleasure of chatting with one of my close friends, an amazing mama, Leah Arnold-Smeets. She's the founder of Woo Woo Realm and an intuitive tarot card reader, medium, and spiritual guide located in Orange County, California, but has clients all over the world. However, I met Leah in her pre-Woo Woo life when she was a badass COO for an app development company and a marketing and operations expert. Watching Leah's growth over the years to now emerge into this beautiful spiritual being has inspired me over the years to also tap into my spiritual side. When Leah's not slinging tarot cards or tapping into the other side, she's busy being a mom to her 2 kids, Emiko and Jordy, her giant dog, and 9 chickens. Welcome, Leah.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. This is fun.
So do you still have 9 chickens is my question.
We still have 9 chickens. I
Okay.
actually just collected some of the first eggs. They just started laying, so it's very exciting, guys.
Oh, how beautiful. Well, I wanted to kick this off by asking, what has been your biggest mom win of the week?
Oh my gosh. That one's a tough one because I think as moms we're really critical of like what a win is, but literally they're alive, they are well, they are off to school today fully fed, and the laundry's done.
Yay! And to give the audience a little bit of context, how old are your kids and what is kind of the roles that you and your partner, Justin, play?
Yeah, so Emiko is 11, Jordy is 5. They couldn't be more different. I mean, boys are a different breed, right?
Yes.
So Justin is the predominant breadwinner. He's the nice guy. He's the hero, right? The typical dad role. And I'm kind of the COO of the house. I'm the internal workings. I keep it all cohesive and running smoothly. Well, let's be real, as smooth as I possibly can without losing my you know what. And I find little pockets here and there to do tarot readings and do my woo woo realm content and really just continue on my healing journey, which is how this all got started.
Well, on that note, I wanted to back up and talk about where it all started. So you were never a woo-woo realm person. You started off kind of highly corporate, went and got, a business degree and all of that. Let's step back to your pre-motherhood and the beginning. How did it start?
So I guess I was always interested. I think we're all like baby witches on the inside. We're all just collecting leaves and sticks and mixing mud. And my mom, I was born and raised into a really Christian family, and I wasn't even able to read my horoscope. So, I mean, that's where I come from. And to be full circle on the other side of the spectrum is kind of interesting. But I ended up doing what, I thought everybody wanted me to do. I graduated, I went to USC, I was a business major, minored in entrepreneurial studies, ended up working in Dubai, managing an interior design for, I mean, you name it, I've done it in every industry. And I kind of got blindsided by pregnancy. Went through a certain situation and ended up, it was a really tumultuous time actually. And that's why I think Emiko's this blessing on so many levels. She kind of is this old soul that's still teaching me things. And I ended up getting pregnant. Never thought that I would have kids in this lifetime.
Really? Why?
I don't know. Maybe it's emotional damage. I don't know. I just always grew up thinking, oh, that's not for me. I'm just a different type of person and yada, yada, yada. And lo and behold, I get pregnant. And obviously, we had her, and it was just a whirlwind. And I'm sure we'll get into this, but I think my mother wound is really a huge mission in this lifetime to heal and to kind of break generational curses. I call them curses because they feel like that sometimes. Just generational patterns as far as like motherhood is concerned and parental roles.
I guess step back. I want to hear a little bit about what sort of motherhood trauma do you think that you're suffering from the past? Like, what sort of wounds?
So I think just being raised in a broken family, dad has his issues. I was born and he left, so I have zero relationship with him. And my mom raised three kids. I'm the youngest. My brother's the oldest, and my sister's the middle child. And I mean, we fit into those roles perfectly too. And so I think with her, just being raised in a poor family, the struggles that come with that, everybody kind of pitching in and having a say in how my mom raised kids, she kind of was like a little bit resentful of that. And so I think that came out in her mothering as well. And so the mother wound started, and then being raised in South Central LA, let's throw that in there. It was very confusing to always live in survival mode.
Also, as an Asian female.
Oh gosh, yeah. Especially like they came over after the war. My grandma was like, nobody speaks Japanese. Oh, because I'm half Japanese. My mother's the Japanese one.
I didn't really realize she was raised in South Central.
Yeah.
So were my grandpa.
Yeah. So
He was out there.
yeah. So
Huh.
my grandma's house, actually, little fun tip here. I mean, story. Boys in the Hood was filmed on her street, and they used her house. Like it's like the story to tell everybody. I'm like, have you ever seen Boys in the Hood? That is the street, Arlington.
Wow.
And it was an interesting, I mean, that's all I knew at the time, right? So everything was survival mode. And I had family members that were in gangs. I had like you name it, every kind of gang, every flavor of gang, there's some affiliation. And so I just grew up thinking, oh, survival mode, don't talk to people when people ask you where you're from. You don't say anything, you say from nowhere. And they always wanted better for us, my family. And so they shipped us off to LACES, Los Angeles Center for Enriched Studies. And that's where my brother, my sister, and myself studied from, I mean, I was fourth grade till seventh grade until we moved to Orange County. And so my sister and my brother, they're kind of the more academic ones, if you want to put it that way. And I was a little bit more rebellious.
Third child. Could never imagine that.
It just is in every aspect of my life. I'm just the rebellious one. I'm the black sheep. And so all of that kind of story and narrative of being raised in a poor family, single, broken family home, survival mode, kind of the rougher side of life, it taught me a lot about like street smarts and just as a person being able to protect myself and whatnot. I'm 5'2". Who the hell am I gonna like start fighting? But it taught me a lot as far as survival, but it didn't teach me a lot about coping. It didn't teach me a lot about trusting myself, exploring my own person, right? My own sense of identity. And it was also just kind of living everybody else's dream life, whatever, because you gotta do better than where you came from. Hence the typical Asian thing, like do really well in school, become a doctor, prove your family right, and so we can all get out of this shithole. Excuse my French. But my brother went to UCLA, my sister went to Biola, and then I went to USC. So I was like the only one that deviated from the whole Bruin thing. Um, in my
And not a Christian school.
And exactly. So I was the only one that wasn't baptized. I refused to be baptized. And I want to get something straight right now. I have nothing against organized religion. It's just not for me. But I, for some reason, since I was very young, just thought, no, you're not dipping my head underwater and saying it's for Jesus. And my mom hated me because of it.
That's so interesting that you had like a choice in that. Cause I feel like we're baptized really young, especially if you come from that family. Like you're like a baby. You like don't even have a say.
Oh yeah.
And technically I was baptized Catholic, but I consider myself a Buddhist. So
Exactly. Yes.
no.
And so that's why I just always kind of was this rebellious little grumpy kid. I don't know. I just this chip on my shoulder when I came into this world. And I ended up graduating from high school, going to USC, like I said, doing all the things that I thought I needed to do. And I mean, still paying the loans. Like it was just one of those things where I'm like, I'm doing this because I can, and yeah, let's reach for the stars. And then it wasn't until, and tell me if I'm jumping way too far ahead,
No, it's fine.
until I got pregnant. I had come back from Dubai after the whole like bubble bursts, and I came back to a recession. So I was like, okay, what do I do? And I ended up finding a job as like an executive assistant to the president of this debt settlement company. Long story short, long drama story short, I end up getting pregnant after this crazy situation that happened at that company, which legally I'm not allowed to talk about. And so I ended up getting pregnant, and I was in such a bad place then that I was really confused, and I had to ask my, and this might be trigger warning, I'm sorry, or triggering for some, but I wasn't in the right state of mind. I was actually very depressed, very anxiety ridden. I was on meds to kind of cope with the situation that was going on. And I really feel like that was the catalyst for change that really sparked this spiritual awakening in me, because it was like rock bottom. And there was like really, I mean, I either was like not going to make it out of that ditch, or I was going to be the phoenix rising out of the ashes and like be this new person, which thank God the latter happened. And so I ended up calling Justin and saying like, "Oh my gosh." And he was at work, no warning, no special, like, let's film this and hand him the pregnancy test and be like, "Oh my God, look, honey." And we're all like rejoicing, and everybody on TikTok and Instagram's like liking and commenting. It was literally like, "Oh my gosh, I'm pregnant. Are we keeping it?" And then he was like, are you effing kidding me?" "I'm at work. Yes, but we'll talk about this when I get home." I was in such a terrible place that that was normal to me. Like that was the conversation that I felt needed to be had. So again, we have Emiko, and she's oh, it
A
was
redheaded
let
spirit
me back up.
child.
Yeah, let me back up, because I can't even jump into the spiritual side yet, because I have to talk about what probably was the most profound and difficult time of my, probably, I'm hoping, my entire life, was suffering from postpartum depression after having Emiko and not knowing that I was depressed. I remember I read Brooke Shields' book. I remember there was such limited information about postpartum. You were just told that, you hear about these women that are quote unquote crazy. They went crazy, they went insane, and they drowned their babies. They did this, they did that. And I'm like, God, who would do that? And I was such a judgmental person as far as how people should raise their kids, that were like my friends, and oh, they should have been doing this. Like, who the hell was I to be saying anything? I didn't have a kid at the time. And I was like, well, karma's a you know what, and came back around and was like, boop, I'm gonna get you in your booty. Because this is gonna be your big lesson, is postpartum. And I'm very grateful for the experience because I'm very open about it. For the audience and everybody listening, the listeners, I actually went to the psych ward because I neglected to take care of myself. I thought that if I fed my baby formula, she was gonna die. I fed into all of the things that the mommy realm kind of perpetuates. And really, it's like no two babies are the same. No two moms are the same. No two people are the same. And so I was listening again to what everybody else was saying, living everybody else's motherhood, like I was living everybody else's like life. And I ended up just going, I mean, for lack of a better term, ape shit crazy.
What was that like identifying moment? How did you realize that you needed to check yourself in, or did someone else check you in? Like, how did,
Yeah.
I guess, because a lot of moms, they go through this, they can't identify it, like you were saying, because you don't realize you're in it. What was that point when you're like, I do need help?
It was too late. I was too far gone. I was like 10 months in when I went to the psych ward, and somebody took me because they came over, and this is like a whole nother thing. It was just, I felt like the world had it out for us, the universe. I had lost my job, which I believe was postpartum depression related. I got replaced immediately at the time, and it was kind of like my dream job too. And like I said, postpartum doesn't care what echelon you're from, what stage of life you're in, whatever. And it just came in, and it started with me obsessing. Then it was a combination of not eating, not sleeping, because Emiko would just cry. She was so colicky. And then, I mean, just imagine a baby who slept 15 minutes at any given moment, even through the night, quote unquote, because it wasn't through the night. She was eating about 12 ounces of breast milk per serving, and she was like months old, and nothing would come up. She would just keep it down. That's why she was so chunky. Remember, everybody was like,
I remember.
how are you
She
like
was
18
adorable.
pounds and she's like the same size? Yeah. And I started losing weight, drastic amounts of weight, and people were commenting on it. And I was like, oh, it's just, because I'm breastfeeding all the time and da 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 da. I'm stressed because I had definitely lost a lot of weight in high school after like a breakup, or in college after a breakup. And I was like, oh, it's just stress, right? It's just stress. But then I started losing my cool all the time. I was yelling. We were fighting. Justin and I were fighting. I felt inadequate, which I mean that comes with having a new baby, right? But it's how it perpetuated and just didn't let up and even got worse. That now the baby's feeding off of my energy, and it just kept going, going, going for 10 months. I lost my job. Justin got a 20% pay decrease. And mind you, this is still kind of recession, like in 2000, God, was it
When was Emiko born?
11? She was
2011? Okay.
2011, so it's like the economy was still kind of weird.
Yeah.
It was just financially, spiritually, emotionally, physically exhausting and draining. We kind of went through this really difficult phase, and then on top of that, I'm having postpartum depression and not knowing. So I thought it was circumstantial, right? Like, okay, of course. We had to move in with Justin's grandparents, and that's where it kind of was a blessing. I really do feel like everything happens for a reason, because if we didn't move in, I mean, I'm telling you, I was begging people to come to Laguna Niguel and watch our baby. And everybody was in Orange County, like North Orange County. We're way South Orange County. And I even had somebody tell me, who's no longer in the family, thank God, oh, I'm busy with my own grandkids. And I was like, well, okay. So it already took a lot for me to ask for help, which is one thing mothers have difficulty with. But on top of that, the rejection and the blatant, like, I'm busy. And yes, some people were busy, that's fine, right? But when I'm like, I literally want to throw my baby against the wall, like, who's going to help me? Like, that's how bad it is. I tell people, if you want to throw your baby against the wall, if you want to put them in the microwave and that sounds normal to you, please call me, because it's not normal, but we can get help. And that's why I'm so open about it. And again, I'm sorry, but this is like the realities of postpartum. And so it got to the point where I started hearing a radio. And Justin's like, "Oh, honey, there's no radio play. There's no music. No one's having a party." And then it just kept going. And then it wasn't like I heard voices at all. I didn't get to that psychosis level. I believe it was borderline though. And one of his aunts came over to his grandma's house, his Oma's house, and she asked, "Well, how are you?" And I would always be like, "I'm fine. Hey, I'm fine." And then that day, I don't know what it was. She just said my face was so like kind of just blank stare into somewhere. She didn't know where. And I just said, I'm not okay. And I think she knew. I think everybody kind of knew. And then she's like, I'm going to call Lindsay, who's Justin's mom. I'm going to call Lindsay. And I said, okay. And so all of that, like, it just was this snowball effect. And then once I went to the psych ward, it's like everybody was like, oh shit, she wasn't joking. And I'm like, I wish people took us more seriously. Like, I don't need you to come over and bring me a casserole. Go do the dishes, or do my
Yeah.
laundry, or pick up the kid. And so that's where it became really eye-opening for me that there's not a lot of awareness around. Well, now there is, thank God, around postpartum. We're just labeled as crazy, and something must have been going on, or she must have been on.
It's just the baby blues,
Yeah, it's just
the no sleep, yeah.
it has to get so extreme for people to like do anything, or that in my experience it was. And so now it's a completely different story, right? And I now am a survivor. I can talk about it openly without it being this shameful, guilt-ridden experience where I failed as a mother and I'm like, I'm here. That is winning, like, for me, for my daughter, my family, for other women out there, because I've helped a few women that were brave enough to reach out to me. And I was like, oh, yeah, honey, that's not the baby blues. We need to get you some help. And I think that's what makes the difference is when you have even one person to go to that hears you, sees you, feels you, then you know it's okay. And you can put your pride aside. You can put all of the like peanut gallery things that people are going to say aside. And it shouldn't have to get to the level it did with me.
At what point did you start to take everything inward and start to heal yourself kind of on the inside? Like what happened in the psych ward? Did they like just medicate you? Like, or where did this sort of like journey from healing from within begin?
So actually, I was put on a 5150 against my will. I told them I'm not going to the psych ward if that's the case. I would like to go because really all I needed was rest. I need somebody to take my baby. I needed to rejuvenate and just kind of have some alone time to recoup. Put on a 5150. I was released early, thank God. I was not medicated at all. And then I unfortunately had CPS called on, or like a hold on me. I couldn't be with my daughter without somebody there. And then in order, and financially, we weren't in a position to get therapy every week, so I can get a clearance from a psychiatrist or doctor. And so Justin literally had to beg the social worker and say, "This is our situation. Like, I don't know what you want us to do." So she lifted the hold. I mean, it was just a nightmare of an experience.
Wow.
Sometimes the system works, and sometimes it really, really doesn't. And I think it's so unfair sometimes, but thankfully we figured a way out of it. And so while I was in the psych ward, I was with people that were genuinely mentally ill, like genuinely mentally ill. I had a lady in there that said Obama was trying to kill her. I had a girl in my same, and there's no doors. I'm sharing a room with six other people. A guy walked into the room, told me the angel in his ear told him to kill me. Like it's real. And people see helicopters and I started questioning like, well, do they? Is that like in a different dimension? Like maybe they do, right? I think schizophrenic people really do see what they see, but it might be in a different realm that we don't see. Like we don't see ghosts, but some people do. And
Like
so,
you.
yeah.
We'll get to that in a bit.
And so in the psych ward, I kind of have had this epiphany, this realization that one, relief because people heard me now. Like they knew I was not joking around. And I knew I'd have the support. Everybody came in from my family, Justin's family, and that was wonderful. Very grateful for that. But when I was released early, even the nurses were like, "You shouldn't be here." Bless those little Filipino nurses that I love so much that believed me. And they kind of helped me get out of there because they're like, "You shouldn't be here." And I told Justin during visiting hours, like, "Don't bring Emiko. There's energy here." And that's when I started feeling energy, which I had for a while. I just couldn't put like a name to it. I was always that kid that was watching like unsolved mysteries and aliens and like all this stuff. I was always into the woo-woo side of stuff, the esoteric side and unexplained side of things. And so in the psych ward is when I really started connecting to that part of myself that was curious to see what was there. Like, where does this come from? How did this like thing take over me? And of course, it's explained through science and like just like health and whatnot, chemicals. But I wanted to understand it more, and it just perpetuated this fast forward a little bit to when Emiko was, gosh, she must have been, no, that's what started my spiritual journey. Let me back up. When I got out, I started researching spirituality and I came across Abraham Hicks. And
Mm.
so I started listening to Abraham Hicks, like the gateway drug. And I started just kind of being like, well, why not me? Why can't I have this enlightenment moment where like God talks to me or. And so I just started reading all the stories about and researching, and it just got deeper and deeper. Then Justin's aunt from Holland, because he's Dutch Indonesian, his family from Holland came over, and one of the ladies, she's kind of a cousin, a friend of the family, came over and started like had her hands and almost like she was feeling the energy coming off of Emiko's head. And Emiko's 10 months old. And I'm like, I just knew something within me knew exactly what she was doing. And I was like, oh my God, she's going to tell me she's an old soul and I have to protect her and da, 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 da. And that's exactly what she did. So this lady reads like dolphin energy cards, angel energy, and talks to angels. Like that's her method. And she taught me how to protect Emiko. Imagine that you guys are trees with your roots. Your feet have roots in it that go deep into the earth that anchor you in. And then your leaves are this bright light and you just are protected, right? So it's whatever visualization you need, that was hers for me. And I started doing that because I feel like when I was little, everyone would be like, God, you're such an old soul. And then I feel like because I was this light in the darkness, everything just found me and it kind of shut it down, it dimmed it, it attacked it, whatever you want to call it. And so I kind of lost that spark. And I wanted Emiko to continue keeping hers and shine bright and da da da, but while protecting. And so that really was probably the moment I was like, we're diving in. Because I was like,
Mhm.
I believe everything you're saying. Let's dive in. And then it started with, oh my gosh, the abilities I thought were what made me weird, like seeing a ghost of my uncle who passed away, having dreams where they would come true, just kind of sensing people's energy when I met them. And some people I would tell my mom, I'm like, my heart does not feel good when I'm around them. Like they scare me. Like I could look at somebody and they would scare me and I don't know why. I couldn't tell you why. I just always had that like ability. And I think we all do if we tune into it, right? It's just a vibe. We call it a vibe in like mainstream
Or
or
intuition or
intuition,
yeah.
gut feeling, women,
Yes.
or, womanly intuition. And so that's what really started it. And then I started exploring my own abilities, really wanting them to like just pop up again and flourish and bloom and I can do this. And then Emiko started saying things where and she was little, like 1, 2, whatever age you are, you can just talk, like barely talk because she could barely form a sentence. And she would say the white cat in my crib. And I'm like, we're all allergic to cats. We don't have a cat. There's no cats in here. There's no cat that got in here. Then I was like, okay, whatever. She has an imaginary friend, don't we all? Then it got to her like frightened and saying, who's the scary man? Like, scary man behind you, scary man behind you. And I'm like, oh, hell no. Like, oh my
Oh,
God.
no.
And so that's when I started getting heavily into protection and how to hone her abilities while still like protecting the house. So I would like energetically sweep the house before I went to bed at night in my mind. Like a lot of the things I do are visualization and I would protect her. I got into crystals, I got into tarot, like all that stuff. I was into tarot for a long time, just like in the closet about it.
I was gonna say, because for a while, I feel like you were in the closet. I mean, I'm gonna
Oh
share
God,
this,
yeah.
but, like,
Yes.
I think so I was pregnant with Chase, so this would be, like,
Oh my
2014
God.
or so, and it for me, it would only come out from you when you got drunk,
Oh yeah.
basically.
My
Like, you would get intoxicated, and I will never forget the one moment we were sitting there, and you're like, your grandma wants to talk to you," and I was like, "What the F?
I was
Excuse me?"
so
And you're like,
intrusive with that. So
you're like, "Oh, yeah, so your grandma's here, she's your guardian angel." You'd go on this entire thing, and the next morning when you wake up, you, like, didn't remember saying anything. And so, I'm, like, curious how you wanted to repress that so much. How did you end up opening up and making that, like, not a drunk moment, but, like, a reality, and, what was that like?
I think enough times where now I know that that was really rude of me to be so intrusive with
No, it wasn't rude, it was
no, like
so cool.
random strangers though too, like the waitress. And what happens is my body starts sweating and shaking, and then like I said, I don't see like apparitions or I see visions in my head, like if you're recalling a memory. So I would do that to waitresses. I do that to fucking strangers. I'm like, oh my gosh, Leah. And so that's like really rude. It's like peeking into someone's bathroom window and be like, hey, what are you doing? And so, yeah, I learned not to do that anymore and ask for permission. It starts with like this bodily sweating, shaking, and then the visions come. And it does not stop, like, my body doesn't stop shaking until the message is out. And that's how I know it's done. And I'm like, okay, there's something there. Like, there's something there. I'm giving people, which is like my life's work is to be able to channel messages from the other side and to get so good at it that when somebody passes, I'm with crystal clarity and confidence that this is them, this is what they want to say to you, yada, yada, yada. And so that's like my dream. And it's like a muscle. Psychicism is a muscle. And so you have to, like anything, you just have to work at it. So I started, you guys were all my guinea pigs, thank you. But I started just doing it more often, researching it, taking classes, courses, anything I could get my hands on. I would just absorb that information. I would like devour it. And it became this calling. I got that job at Super Toy Box. I was originally the project manager. Then I ended up like moving my way up, and then I became COO and then head of projects or director of projects, whatever lofty title you want
I
to.
know. I felt like you were living these dual lives.
Yeah.
You were like a C-level exec,
Yeah.
totally like corporate, whatnot, Leah. But then on the flip side, you were this like magical being. And
Yes.
so, how did you live in a world where you were like two different people showing up every day and then showing up as a mom?
So it's so weird because like I made my business partner drink the Kool-Aid, again, me being intrusive and controlling. And really, he and I had this really strong connection and understanding, which a lot of people think is weird. And I'm like, we need to normalize male and female platonic relationships and dynamics. And it's what allowed us to work so seamlessly together. So like we could finish each other's sentences. So we're in meetings and we can just like, it was, the synergy was amazing and the collaboration was amazing, but the work was killing us. So the way I balanced it is I just went in there full throttle and was like, hey, I see dead people. But I mean, he was so open to it. So he was totally fine with it. He even used the like, I trust your intuition on this. Let me know like how you feel about this. So he embraced it, which was wonderful.
That's incredible bringing intuition into the workplace
It is.
because I feel like it's all very cut and dry and data. And yes, like there is data behind intuition and things like that, but to be able to weave those, that's awesome.
And it was interesting because it came in handy when I had to hire people. When we were like, I have a built-in lie detector test. I think all women do. But like I have a built-in lie detector that I'm just like, I call your bullshit. Like don't tell me that. And then like you're blowing smoke up our ass. And so it helps in that regard because I think when we are taught that being women we're too emotional and emotions don't belong in the workplace, I'm like, that is a crock of you know what, because that has helped us so much in my personal experience. And when I talk to powerful women that are C-suite and just killing it and boss babes, like it is the one thing that they use that allows them to trust themselves. It allows them to be determined and courageous and tenacious, right? And so that is really key. It's a key component to trust your intuition and to use your emotions to your benefit. Of course, when they're out of control and whatnot, that's a whole different story. But when we lead with our intuition, which is part of emotions too, I think that it's magical. I think it's so powerful. I think it lends for so much clarity and assuredness that why wouldn't you, right? Why wouldn't you use your emotions for that? That's the best navigation tool. And there's like science behind energy too.
I was going to ask, do you have any tips on like tangible tips on how to actually tap into that intuition?
Yeah.
Like, are there any things that you can do or like people can do in their everyday life to tap into that sort of feeling?
Yes. So I always, and people always ask me, oh, I do one-on-one coaching too. And a lot of the questions that come through are about manifestation. And
Mm.
90% of manifestation is intuition, right? And being able to visualize, trust it, and just, I mean, almost like fake it to make it kind of thing. So, the one advice that, or piece of advice that I give people who are trying to distinguish between intuition and ego is usually ego is the mind. It seeps in right after you feel really good about something, right? It's like right on the other side of fear is everything you want and need and are like striving for. It's just right on the other side. But first, the little devil on your shoulder has to come in and be like, "Ooh, we're here to keep you safe." And we shouldn't do that. That's scary, right? That's where ego comes in and kind of keeps you safe, like the super ego that wants to come in and parent you based on parental and societal standards, right? To keep you safe, in line. Don't do that. Here you go. But its flaw is it doesn't know that you're not a child anymore, right? So you have to stop feeding it by entertaining it. And so intuition is really this full body yes. It's a centered, confident, it's not without question or doubt, but there's something greater there that is pulling you towards it. Like when I started doing tarot and felt this call to start doing professional readings, there was this unshakable alignment and urge and calling to follow this path or at the very least, just pick up a deck and start shuffling it. And once I did, it was like everything fell into place. And so the intuition was followed by inspired action, intentional action, and with a vision in mind. And then when that hit, it was like, oh my gosh, that's the puzzle piece falling into place right there. It feels good. I don't mind talking about it. Like, even though I was like in the closet, the tarot, witchery, whatever, woo woo closet, I still was like being drunk medium, Leah. Like, it wasn't like I wasn't, right? And so I would talk about it all the time. And I talked to Justin about it all the time. And it was just like this thing. And so intuitively, I feel like I connect with it by breath work. I connect with it with intention. And we label it as like thought stopping, reframing. There's all these things. We're all speaking, like saying the same thing, but speaking a different language. Like intuition is gut, manifestation is prayers, and like and whatnot. So it's really just, I think the most powerful thing I can give is breath work. Really, if you want to control your body, your mind, and your soul, get in tune with your breath. Get a Reiki session done. It's almost like a massage, but energetic massage. And understanding yourself as well. So you can trust yourself more and become more aware of your experience, which is AKA your life and your journey, so that you stop living from a place of survival, like I was talking about, and stop reacting to everything and start responding to stuff, choosing to respond, right? It's such a more aligned feeling. It's a softer feeling. It's a more truthful like it feels like there's integrity behind that versus road rage feeling. You cut me off and how dare you? So I'm going to
Very external.
very external. So instead of living from the outside in, like the stimuli from the outside in, you're kind of navigating life from this lens of inside, like looking from the inside out. And when you can control and have some sense of control over your inner realm, your inner world and workings, and you're able to stop that, like, my heart's racing, I'm sweating, I'm going to blow up on this person, or this person's wronged me, so I got to wrong them. It's like we're all 5-year-olds punching each other on the play yard. You hit me first. And it's like, what is going on here? So getting back in tune with your breath and finding that center, and it'll look different on any given day. It's a spectrum. But as long as you know what that center feels like, go by what you feel, less about what you think, because the mind is not always the most trustworthy thing. So your heart is always going to speak truths to you.
How has that helped you in your parenting?
Oh Lord, how dare you call me out? How dare you call me a hypocrite?
I'm just asking. Because a lot of moms out there, they're like, great, this intuition thing, this what, but like we're always living in this like busy, go, go, go. Like,
Yes.
So how have your practices helped you in your parenting?
So I think the biggest thing is it's allowed me to explore my trauma and my wounds a little bit more. So again, I understand myself better and understand why I think the way I do, where the lack is and where the blockages are. Like I said, I identified the mother wound that we were talking about earlier. And to know that I'm a little bit more sensitive, I've inherited a sensitivity to not being a quote unquote natural mother, good mom, all this stuff like praising my kids. Oh my gosh, look at him on the play yard. Like, I'm not the one you'll find at a park. I'm just not that one. But what I am teaching my kids is to trust themselves, doing my best to. I definitely mess up on a daily basis and fall short. But it's really to understand them and to see that this is a relationship that they may or may not have asked for, right? And coming into this world, and that they are their own people, and to not shape them in a way that I think is best for them. My responsibility is to keep them safe, to nurture them, to really hone their own natural abilities, quirks, whatever it may be. And like I said, Emiko and Jordy are so different, so I have to mother them so differently. It's just this awareness, I think, when you have this intuitive connection, not only to yourself, but to your kids, it allows you to have much more compassion. I think that's what I'm trying to get at. That awareness creates compassion for yourself so that I'm not so hard on myself when I do mess up, that I can praise myself when I do good and honor both sides of the coin. And that translates into motherhood in the sense that I can be gentler. I'm by no means a gentle parent. I don't do gentle parenting. I try to, but it's just, I don't know.
But I love that balance from
Yeah.
within that you have both of those. So,
Yes, at least I have that awareness that
yeah.
this is possible. I can forgive myself and bounce back to this, or I can praise myself for doing something different than what I was taught. Like I can
Yeah.
speak to my kids differently. I mean, we all lose our, what, but it's coming back to it and not living in this place of shame, survival, oh my gosh, guilt, and really having this love for yourself that translates to love for your children. It's that thing. You can't love someone until you love yourself kind of thing. And so that's been a huge like wake up call in mothering too.
So, what also made you leave this corporate world and then dive into building out Woo Woo Realm and building out tarot? Because it's always been like a passion, like a side thing. But then what made you finally take that leap?
So Super Toy Box was the other company. We had dream clients. I mean, dream clients, but it was absolutely killing us mentally, emotionally, spiritually. My business partner and I, we had went through a really difficult period. Finally, we have this saying that's no more, no, like never again. Hashtag never again. And we made the conscious decision to pare things down and pare things down, pare things down. So it allowed and freed up time for us to do passion projects. He went into the more creative animation type of technical aspect, design aspect. And I was like, well, I'm going to do tarot. He was like, you should, you're really good at it. So I was like, okay. So I set up a Instagram. Woo Realm wasn't even supposed to be the name. It was just a placeholder. And then it just stuck. It's like a good icebreaker, I guess. And I ended up starting Woo Realm on January 14th, 2020. I think it was like right before the pandemic. I mean, it was right before, I think it was 2020. Yeah. I'm all, what year are we in? What day? And then it just took off. I just started creating content in Photoshop, and I started posting stuff, and it really was meant for me to just share my healing journey, my healing journey through the art of tarot.
And can you explain just a little bit about what tarot is for those people who might just think it's some like psychic witch in like a
Yes,
little room, reading your cards like in Tiana or something?
yes.
So
And that's like what
the stigma of it.
yes, the stigma and the stereotypical, like, oh my gosh, and I grew up thinking if I touch a deck, the devil's gonna come out. Really, the power is not in the cards. They are magical and whatever, but the real power is in the reader and how you interpret the cards, the story you tell. It's like going to a friend and asking for their advice, and their interpretation of your situation is going to be different, varying friend to friend, right? So, how I explain tarot is they're just a vehicle. They're a vehicle for messages to come through. I do believe that they have a magical component to them, but so does the Bible, so does prayer, whatever you want to call it. The best way I can explain is like a weather forecast. So we can predict the weather to a certain degree based on the knowledge that you know, right? That meteorologists know at the time. Just as the winds can change, your free will can change and you can choose differently. So the messages from a reading can change based on how you decide to live your life and take the messages, just like the weather. So it's not so much, oh, I'm telling the future, more so out of all the possibilities and options and outcomes, this one's the most likely and in your highest good, or these are the ones that are in your highest good. So I never really tell people anything that they don't already know, but because of the nature of your mind just racing and you having so many options, so many thoughts, so many fill in the blanks, tarot really calls out what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. Because I feel like what you want to hear is in your head and what your friends are going to tell you. And tarot's that sassy auntie that's like, oh, no, no, honey, you're going to have to sit down for this one. And so, like, tarot is that, like the sassy, like give it to me straight. And then oracle cards are like, come on, baby, do you need a hug? Come here, mama will make it all better. And so that's why I like doing tarot, because I'm a little bit more of the former. But
You sassy, never would have
never,
imagined.
right? Never. So that's how I use tarot, and it can transcend love life, personal life, career, professional, talking to the dead. I mean, you name it. And so It's just a matter of pulling out information in your head or in the ether and bringing it into form in the sense of like a storyboard, which is what the cards are. They're a storyboard. And I just tell the story of it. I'm the interpreter.
I love that. Do you do it on Justin at all, or do you do it to help your life at all, or do you just read
Yes.
other people's?
So I read for myself. I sometimes read for Justin if he has like he never asks. Of course, I'm like, "Do you want me to pull some cards, honey?" And it gives him the insight and like confirmation he needs, clarity. But I really love doing in-person one-on-one readings. That's my jam. I love it. I do Zoom meetings, or readings rather, that are remote because obviously my clients aren't down the street all the time. So those are fun too because I love the back and forth. I love the interaction. I love that you can ask questions and I can answer them. I could pull a card. You can give me more information and we can go deeper into that message or explore that situation a little bit deeper. So I love that one-on-one that's live. But I find it actually harder to read for myself because I'm biased. I want to hear what I want to hear. So tarot has really taught me to be more open and accepting of what I need versus what I'm trying to control. Because hello, control freak over here, trying to control every little thing. And it relinquishes the need for that, or it encourages me to. And it gives me the ability to have this external awareness of a situation. It's like journaling, right? It's like making a vision board. It's like just fleshing out all of the ideas in your head, thoughts in your head onto paper and getting it out. So in that sense, it's very therapeutic.
Do
Very.
you do any other kind of practices kind of for yourself, maybe daily? Any sort of not self-care, but any sort of that like journaling or spiritual practices daily?
I do. I have a little altar for some of the deities, and this might be a little bit too woo for some people, but it's like an altar for ancestors in the more witchy community. Sometimes you work with deities, and I mean, it's nothing like I'm doing a seance or anything. There's nothing wrong with that, but I just have a picture of the goddess. I don't worship her. It's just an archetype within me that I'm being called to embody. It's like embody that boss bitch, and I'm like, yes. There's just a goddess name to it. And so I like I have a little coffee cup that I leave her coffee. When I have my glass of wine, I'll leave her a tiny little glass of wine. I'll put some crystals. I'll pull some cards, and then it's kind of she's giving me a message for the day, an affirmation for the day. And so when you reframe it, and it's not so like, oh, devil worshiping, it's like, okay, it's actually there's a method to the madness. There's actually a lot of truth to it. It's not as scary as people think. You'd be surprised how many people are open to it. I was blown away how many people are open to it. It's just the stigma that makes people think that's of the devil. It's against my religion. It's against everything I believe in. We're going to open a portal. And I'm like, oh, honey, you've been opening portals before you even were talking about tarot with that nasty attitude. No, but it's just not as scary as everybody makes it out to
Yeah.
be. And it really is. I mean, some people go to therapy, some people work out, some people go to church, some people, I don't know, party. I go to tarot. No harm, no foul, and I'm not like summoning the like demons or anything. I'm not trying to at least, but it's one of those things that has helped me understand myself on such a profound level, deep level, and I'm so grateful for it, and it allows me to do that for other people in a gentle way, in a truthful way, and also give them messages that help them heal. I think that's most important. We're all just trying to walk each other home, right? And heal and find that solid ground, and that's what it did for me.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, thank you, Leah. To wrap things up, final question. What do you think is your superpower that you gained once you became a mom that makes you better at life, business, whatever that might be?
Oh my gosh. Honestly, it was realizing that I'm not in control of everything and don't need to be, and to let life happen and to embrace what the universe blesses you with, even if it is postpartum, even if it is struggle. There's always opportunity and healing, and I guess opportunity for growth, really, which is healing in itself, in all the tough lessons that we encounter. And it can't be peachy keen all the time, But I think it's in the tougher moments of life, which motherhood has a lot of them, that you have to kind of relinquish control and embrace that things are the way that they are. And we could actually learn a lot from our kids. We're not here to control them. We're here to love them and learn from them.
Oh, that's beautiful. And where can we find you?
So you can find me on Instagram at woowoorealm.com or on my website, woowoorealm.com. Oh, sorry, at woowoo
Nope.
on Instagram and then woowoorealm.com. There we go.
And make sure it's just woo woo realm and not
Yes.
underscore any sort of other
Oh,
weird
gosh,
things
no.
because Leah has had a ton of people trying to imposter her or pretend that they're her.
Yes.
So
At woowoo realm.
I love it. Well, thank you, Leah, so much for joining today and sharing all of that enlightening information.
Thank you for having me. This was therapeutic. I love this.
I'm glad. Well, I hope some other people out there were able to heal a little bit within too. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Mommy's on a Call. Your support means the absolute world to me. You can find the show notes for this episode and other goodies over at mommysonacall.com. And if you enjoyed this episode or have gotten value from the podcast, I would be so grateful if you could head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a rating and review so that we can reach and empower more moms all over the world together. Thank you so much again, Mommy Pod, and I will see you here next time.